I'm going to make a few announcements for the class, CL. How many of you are visiting students? And up there, are you in my class? All of you? Are you in CL 112? Raise your hands. You should be sitting down here. Would you mind coming down here? What? I just don't understand. Anyway. You know that we have the very generous and wonderful offer of Visiting Theory's beautiful, extraordinary headquarters. And there's still room for more, okay? It's on the 20th, Tuesday at 5:30, Thursday the 22nd at 5:30. And this is for our class, okay? And we've already had many sign up. And those who've signed up, you can go up after this class and pick up the instructions and directions where to go. All right. Well, welcome all of you. Today is an extraordinary day, and I'm sorry that many of you that would be here took Columbus Day off, it seems. And yes, I made the announcement that's important. And of course, you take notes, etc., for your exam. And I want to say just a few words about Mr. Rosen, who is one of the extraordinary, outstanding fashion connoisseur. He has the feeling. It's extraordinary. And you know he's the CEO, you've seen the post, you know him. How many of you like theory and shop there? Very good. Okay. He was born in Boston, Mass. He went to school at Pebble Beach, California, and the University of Miami. He's a third generation of a family of fashion leaders. That's third generation. And his grandfather, Arthur, founded Puritan Fashions, which was one of the hottest companies at the time he founded it, forward-looking. And the whole family are visionaries. And his father, Carl, created licensee programs for Mary Quant, for Diane von Furstenberg, David Klein, Calvin Klein, and many of the leading people. And he was president of Calvin Klein in 1988, and Anne Klein. His grandson, who is here today, Andrew Rosen, is the founder of Theory, a leading contemporary company in the United States, and it took a visionary like Andrew to put that together and change into the marketplace that was the right marketplace. And that's all I'm going to say. Is that enough? Enough. Now you take over.
All right, we'll try with this microphone first. All right. So, Alice, thank you very much. Alice is the only one that can get me to do this. Normally, I am fairly shy and stick to my own stuff back at the office, but Alice always gets me to come here once a semester to talk to you guys. So always I'm talking to you guys about what I've done and so on and so forth, my life. So on the way over here, I thought, well, maybe we do something different. I mean, I can talk about that if you guys want, but maybe I talk about something that's more relevant and meaningful to you guys. As Alice said, I've been in the business. I actually started in the 1976, 77, and went to work for my dad and so on. And so for over 30 years, I've been toiling in the clothing business, and had some successes, had some things that weren't so good. And Alice talked about theory, but there's a couple of other businesses that I also own and started. One being Alice and Olivia, which I'm sure most of you guys know. Another one being Rag & Bone, which I think most of you guys know. And another company called Griffin. Some of you guys may know that one. And a company called Kiki de Montparnasse is a lingerie concept. We have a store down on Green Street. So I have a lot of different experiences in the industry over a lot of years, and am always looking to do things that are sort of on the forefront of our industry. I don't particularly care for the designer end of the business. When I say the designer end of the business, the most expensive clothes, not that I don't think it's a good business, it's just not a good business for me. And I mainly am involved with companies in the contemporary space of the market. And the reason for that is that, you know, I wanted to, when I started my own business back in 1997, and I wanted to sort of attack a segment of the marketplace that I thought I could make a difference in, that I thought I could do something in an important way. And at that time, the bridge segment of the market was covered by lots and lots of big companies, and the designer segment of the market was covered by lots of big companies. And the contemporary segment of the market was just growing, and really it was actually before it started to grow, was really sort of this young laboratory where all companies from California and small little designers, small little companies got involved. And I felt there was an opportunity for someone with my experience, my expertise. I was a little presumptuous then, but back and I thought I could really make a difference in that category of the marketplace. So back in 1997, I started Theory, and since then I've started all these other companies, and all of them competing in the same space of the market. And the reason for that was that I felt that I could do something much like Louis Vuitton or Gucci or Prada had done in the designer segment of the market, which was to own a big piece of the real estate of the business in the contemporary segment of the market. And it's sort of at this point worked out fairly well. Anyway, you asked me a couple of questions that I thought were good questions. One, also about 6 months ago, the Theory company that I started in 1997 was acquired by Fast Retailing. Fast Retailing is the owner of Uniqlo. I don't know how many of you guys know Uniqlo store. So Uniqlo is a very exciting store, and it just did a deal with Jill Sander, and they have a line called Plus J, which they do. And Uniqlo is a really low price clothing store. I mean, this sweater at Uniqlo would be $69, 100% cashmere. And their jeans are very inexpensive, but the quality is amazing for what you get. And so they did a deal with Jill Sander, and Jill Sander is using her design and technical expertise to make clothes. I think the Jill Sander shirts are $39. I think the jackets are $89. It's an amazing thing, an amazing concept. And Uniqlo, I think, is probably the most exciting retail store in the world right now. And I just was in Paris. They opened a 23,000 square foot shop in Paris. It was the first store in Paris. And the first day they did over 600,000 euros. And for a week after that, they're still standing in line to get into the store. But so Uniqlo, Fast Retailing, bought the company Theory in March of 2000, and now I work for this $7 billion Japanese conglomerate. And I have to tell you, in a lot of ways, it's not fun because I'm a very entrepreneurial kind of guy. I've developed our business and developed all of the businesses that I'm involved in sort of just from my own instincts. It hasn't really been that I have all of these analysis and blueprints and everything else. I have my own instincts, and I have a vision for what I want to do and what I want to create, and but most of it is very instinctive. So here's a company that's come in that's $7 billion company that wants to go to $50 billion within the next 15 years. And they want me to put lots of things down on a piece of paper and lots of predictions and projections and so on and so forth. So from that perspective, it would be a little tough for me, but I give that stuff all to my CFO. And I deal still with marketing and merchandising stuff. I don't get myself too bogged down in the numerical aspect of things. But I do have to say that Fast Retailing and Uniqlo are a very smart company. And there is so much that even I have learned from them, and learned a whole new way of operating and a new way of managing. And it's actually, on one hand, it's been a pain in the neck because they also want me to fly to Japan all the time, which I don't like to do that. And they want me to do all these projections and budgets. But on the other hand, they've opened up a whole new way of doing business. And one of the great things that their company has is their company has a very strong culture. And if you look at every successful company, it is built because there's a very strong culture there. And they have a very strong culture. They have a very strong philosophy and methodology of doing business. And in a way, it's not too dissimilar from the philosophy and methodology of which I built theory on. The differences are what I explained to you, is that they're a little more structured than I would be. But a lot of the philosophies and methodologies are the same. So here's and it doesn't happen so often, a guy that founded the company, sells the company, and continues on working very happily for the new owners. And that would be me. And very happy. And another reason why I'd say I was so happy is that I think Uniqlo is a very exciting retail platform, and one that I think is over the next few years is going to really be the guiding light in specialty retailing. I think they're amazing. So I can talk a little bit more about some of my philosophies, but I would sort of rather, if it's okay, if you guys want to ask some questions or have any questions you want to ask. Well, when I started theory, I was almost 40 years old. I was 39 and something, almost 40 years old. And I had been in the industry over 20 years. And most people, when they start their company when they're really young. They have no experience, and they don't know how to do anything. They just have this tremendous passion and this idea, and feel that because they're young and passionate about what they want to do, they can conquer the world. And I think all of that is good and true, but I think the reality of the situation is, because I once too was young and thought I knew everything and could conquer the world. But I worked for my dad at that time. I didn't start my own business. But so I started my business. I had 20 years of experience. I knew where to go to manufacture clothes. I knew how and who to sell the clothes to. I knew where to buy the fabrics from. So it wasn't that I had to learn anything. And the hardest thing really was just to get started and to get the confidence to go out on your own, the confidence to be able to stand up in front of a bunch of people and say that the idea that you had and the philosophy that you had, that you believed in so much that just to get up and do it. And I was lucky because I started the business on the concept that, and this is back in 1997, right, when the age of cell phones and the internet and computers was just beginning. And before that, people were locked in their office. The only place they could work was in their office. They didn't have the ability to be as mobile as we are today, because wherever we are today, we can work or play. It's very simple. Because you're connected to you're connected with your BlackBerry or your iPhone, and you can do all your emails. You can communicate with everyone. But back then, the only way you could do that was to be sitting in your office. And so clothing was made really for people working in offices for the most part. And clothing wasn't made for a woman's varied lifestyle that was to come when the advent of all of this kind of stuff that I talked about. So I started clothes on two premises. One, that a woman's life was going to be very versatile, and that she needed clothes to be as versatile as what her life was going to be, and that her wardrobe was made out of individual pieces. It wasn't made out of outfits. And back then, everyone was making clothes that made outfits because they felt that if they made outfits, they could sell multiple pieces. I didn't really believe in that. I believed in selling individual pieces, and that pant and a jacket and a shirt could be mixed and matched through a woman's wardrobe however she saw fit, that it had the freedom or the ability to go with whatever she wanted it to go with. It didn't have to go with this shirt. This shirt didn't have to go with this jacket and this pair of pants. It became more versatile. And so that was one premise. And the other premise was that I was going to make 100% of the clothes that I made out of fabrics with Lycra. And the reason I was going to make the clothes out of fabrics with Lycra was that A, the clothes were going to be very comfortable. B, the clothes were going to be very, very sexy because they had the elasticity to them. And C, the clothes could be very classic in nature, but because the fabrics had elasticity, the shape and proportion of those clothes would be very different and much sexier than the clothes that were made with fabrics without Lycra. And because of that, really, I had a very unique, very simple, unique concept. And it took off immediately. And the first year I did about 6 million. The second year I did 20 million. The third year I did 40 million. And then on and on from there. Today we do over $500 million around the world. So, it's a good question, right? I once was 18, 19, 20 years old, whatever you guys are. And, I had the good fortune that I could pick up the phone and call my dad and say, Dad, I'm ready to come to work now. And my dad put me to work in the factories and warehouses and so on. And I spent a year sort of doing that and getting trained. And then I came to New York and worked in the showroom and sort of worked my way up from there. But, many people don't have that leg up that I had, and good fortune to be able to do that. So one of the things is that I think it's so important to, when you're young, be able to start working in any part of the industry. It doesn't matter. Hopefully it could be the part of the industry that you love, but maybe it isn't the part of the industry that you love, but you want to get started in the industry. You want to get started with a good company. And I say to you, it doesn't matter so much how much you make, or it doesn't matter so much as to where you start, but it matters that you get started and that you have a passion and sense of urgency for the job that you have. And in our industry, you can move up really quickly. So I think that the idea is that you find a company that you feel that their aesthetic could match what you believe in, and figure out a way to get a job there. Maybe I can help you. So if I help you, then I got to extend the whole thing. It's the same thing to everyone else. But it's interesting. It has happened. Like Alice gets me to speak here every 6 months or so. And the last time I spoke here, there was a couple of kids that were very passionate about wanting to work and wanting to get started. Now I'm going to tell this story. I'm going to have a problem. But so there was a couple of kids that actually got the opportunity to spend some time with me once a week, or their free day a week, and spend some time working with me and followed me around the office and sort of learned the industry from that side. So I'm open-minded about that kind of stuff, about trying to help you guys. But I think that, as I say, it's just important that you get started. It really doesn't matter where. But I would advise you to try and find a company, as I say, whose aesthetic would be something that you can respect and aspire to, because then you'll do a little better at the job. You know, I'm going to talk to you from two perspectives, right? Everybody thinks it's very glamorous to own your own company and to be your own boss. I have to tell you that it's nothing glamorous about it. Maybe a few days a week or a few days a month you get a few minutes of glamour from doing it. But basically it's pretty hard work, and the responsibility of where the company is going, and how you're going to pay your bills, and how you're going to support your passion and vision. So it's pretty nerve-wracking, and then eventually you get to a point where you don't have to worry about that stuff, and you have to worry about other stuff. But it's not as easy as it looks, owning your own business. And for most of us, it would be many years before we really made any money. Or most of the companies, it's many years before you make any money. Now, of course, there are exceptions to all of that, but my advice always is go learn on someone else's money. Don't start right out of school. Get some experience, and so that when you do get the opportunity, and whether it's your money or your family's money or friends' money or whatever you raise to get started, that you have a better than average chance of making it work. The chances of making it work fresh out of school, I mean, you look, I can give you an example of Alexander Wang. I mean, a young kid fresh out of school, he made it work in a huge way. You can look at Philip Lim, who basically is, you know, I sort of compare those guys a little bit. Philip Lim spent 10 or 12 years working for different companies and different designers, learning his craft in a way. I think Philip Lim is a little better off because he has a basis of experience to be able to draw from. The other question you asked me was working for people, right? Yeah, well, the challenges I would face today are that twice a month I got to have a video conference with Japan. Sometimes 3 times. But it would definitely, as I say, be better to start. And that's why I say, to your point, start with a company whose aesthetic you can respect, so that at least that you're at a company where you can be inspired and passionate. And listen, for the first period of time, no one's even going to notice you. But if you work hard, and our industry is about, first and foremost, some good common sense and a good work ethic. The experience will come later, because the experience is an important issue. But if you have good common sense and you have a good work ethic and you're passionate, have a sense of urgency, you can succeed. So when I started the company Theory, I started it with a partner. And that partner, we had a great relationship and all, and you know, there was a lot of things he did for me. There was a lot of things that I did for him. It was really a good partnership in that way. He never worked in the Theory business at all, but his company provided a lot of resources for me. And 7 or 8 or 9 years into the business, I sort of felt like I didn't want to have to live the same way my dad did. And my dad worked his whole life, and he was sort of a slave to his company. I mean, it was a good thing, but you know, he never had the freedom to do anything else because he had the responsibility of his business, and his money was tied up in his business, so he didn't have the financial freedom. My father was a wealthy man, but he wasn't really that wealthy because everything was tied up in his business. And I sort of wanted to have the ability to have some freedom financially. I wanted to have the ability to have some freedom that I didn't have the responsibility of my partner, so to speak, and have the ability to do what I wanted to do when I wanted to do it. Lo and behold, that's not the case, because here it is a few years later. I first sold, the first piece I sold to fast retailing was in 2004, so it's not, they bought the last part of it just this year. So, but that's why I decided to do it, and I don't regret that I did it in any way, shape, or form. And it's been able to, I was I guess maybe 47 or 8 years old, and was able to at least have had the fruits of my efforts turn into something, and had some good financial freedom and stability for the future, which is totally against me because I'm not about money at the end of the day. But I did it sort of for the money, but not really. I thought it was a good decision. Yeah. Why theory? Okay, so I never really wanted to have the name connected to any design or anything. It was more about a philosophy or a concept, an idea, and I played around with actually I played around the first name that it was going to be Stretch Theory, and because all the fabrics were with Lycra, all the fabrics had stretch to them, and it seemed like nobody really reacted to the idea of stretch theory. And that I felt that, well, that concept they're going to get anyway, because that's what the clothes are going to be, and everyone will quickly understand that. And I sort of liked the name Theory. It was sort of short and crisp and clean, and it sort of matched the aesthetic of the company and the times. And it's ended up working out really well. How I got the name, interestingly enough, there was a guy that owned the trademark Theory. And I knew him. He was in the clothing business. His family had been in the clothing business for a long time. And when I saw that he had it, I picked up the phone and called him. And I said, hey, listen, what are you doing with the name, the Theory? I see you have it registered. He said, well, occasionally my brother makes up some clothes and sells them to some of the discount stores under the name Theory. I said, well, could I come see you? I'd like to talk to you about it. So I went over to his office, and I told him what I wanted to do and asked him if I could buy the name from him, and he said, sure. He said, you can buy the name. I think I have about $5,000 or $6,000 invested in the trademark, and as long as you give my wife and daughter-in-law some free clothes for a while, I'm happy to give it to you. So he regrets it now, but I always kid him. But at the end of the day, it wouldn't have mattered what it was called. It would have been very successful because it had it had a couple of ingredients. A, the clothes were amazing, and the clothes filled a void in the marketplace. They were very simple clothes, but nobody was doing what I did. Nobody was making individual pieces. No one was making clothing solely out of Lycra. And people were making clothes with Lycra, but they were making them the same way that they made clothes without Lycra. And the secret was that clothes with Lycra, the shape and proportion, the fit of them could be totally different. The rise could be shorter. The shape of the leg could be totally different. The cut of the shirts, the cut of the jackets, totally different. But I understood that, and that's why we were able to accomplish what we did. So it's a very important concept that you're talking about, because I think that successful clothing companies have a very consistent aesthetic. And although that aesthetic has to continue to evolve as the world evolves and fashion evolves and people's taste evolve, but it has to remain consistent from an aesthetic point of view, because the customer has to trust that when they come into a brand and they've bought that brand before, that aesthetic and that lifestyle is for them. I mean, the best one that's done that obviously is Ralph Lauren, right? Ralph Lauren is all about lifestyle, and he has created that. But I have, although I'm not a designer by trade, I certainly have, from the very early days, conceptualized, been the creative director of our company, and work very closely with our design team and our merchandising people and all, and still to this day work with them on design concepts and ideas and direction and so on. But I've had probably 6 or 7 head designers, 6 head designers over the 12 years I've been in business. And we have been able to, there was a time there, and right now our business has come back very strong, but over the last year and a half, I would have not been happy with the kind of clothes we were making, and I wasn't happy with them from a design direction or a manufacturing quality direction. And about 9 months or a year ago, I got very much back involved in the company in a day-to-day way, as it related to design and merchandising and manufacturing, and really have changed the dynamic of what was happening in the company. And basically, what happened is a lot of my people, I brought some new people into the company to run the company, and a lot of the old people sort of forgot how we were to do business, and some of the new people, I guess they were listening to me and agreeing with me, but then decided to go do it their way. So those people are no longer there, and we're back where we're supposed to be. So if you went into a store right now, I'd be about 85% happy with where we are. Not 100%, but about 85% happy. So here is the big question, right? The big question is that how do you grow your business? And how do you grow your business when you look and you see at the landscape out there and you see that you don't know which one of your customers is going to be in business, your customer's business, the Saks, the Neiman's, the Bloomingdale's, the Bergdorf's, the Barney's, their business is not growing. In fact, their business is shrinking, and their business has probably shrunk in the last year anywhere from 15 to 30%, depending on which store you're talking about. And yet we know that our business over the next 5 years has got to grow. It may, and our business has shrunk proportionally with our customers' business over the last year. But now things are stabilizing, and I've seen for the first time in the last 3 weeks that business is actually really picking up and gaining some momentum. And how do we grow our business? And the big question is, do we grow it with our retail partners, the Saks, the Neiman's, and so on, or do we do it ourselves? And I believe the answer very much is that we will grow a little bit with the major department stores in this country, but the most growth will be by opening our own stores and developing our own platform of retail. And if you look at most of the successful companies today, those companies have a very strong retail component to their business. If not 100% retail, certainly you've got to be 65, 70% your own retail. You control your distribution, you control the experience, you control the customer service, you control the pricing, you control a lot of things that you can't control when you're selling it to a third party. So at a company our size, our future is in our own retail. Some of the smaller companies I have, which I'm trying to develop and get noticed and to build a customer following for, it's better for me to do that on the retailer's dime than it is on mine. So in a Rag & Bone, for example, we have 2 stores in New York City, and we have 95% of our business through a wholesale distribution. And as our business grows on a wholesale basis, our business will grow on a retail basis. And when we get on really firm footing, then the retail will outpace the wholesale. But initially, and for the next couple of years, the wholesale will outpace the retail, and that will give us the financial wherewithal to be able to expand our retail, because retail is an expensive proposition for a company to get into. There's a lot of fixed costs that we don't have in the wholesale business. So this is a big issue, right? And I work a lot with the CFDA, with the young designers at the CFDA, try to help